Good afternoon, everyone. So, in today's class, we'll be learning about the next topic, which is the preamble of the Indian Constitution. So, here in this class, we'll be basically discussing about the evolution of preamble in Indian Constitution. What were the historical backgrounds related to it? What are the different features and significance of preamble, along with the landmark judgments which are related to the preamble? And time again, Supreme Court has given its judgment, which has led to the understanding about preamble. So we'll be first looking at the preamble. How does it look? The first thing in the Constitution is preamble, which is which is a core declaration towards the outer world as well as to the people of India at the time of independence, that we are adopting this constitution with the aim and purpose so and so. So that is what the preamble has given to the people as well as to the outer world, a core declaration. How does it look like? The people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign democratic republic and to secure to all its citizens justice, socio-economic, political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith, and worship, equality of status and of opportunity, and to promote among them all fraternity, assuring the dignity of individual and the unity of nation. In our Constituent Assembly, the date of adoption, that is 26 November 1949. So this is how the preamble looks like. So what is preamble? We'll first start with this. Preamble is the foundational principle. So what is preamble? Preamble is the foundational principle of the constitutional democracy in India. That it is something which will decide the course of democracy, the constitutional democracy in India. How we will be approaching that, that is from 1947 to this date, how we have approached, how we have built up our constitutional democracy in India. So this is what was the purpose of a preamble, that is foundational principle. Now, in this class, we will be taking up the definition, how will we define preamble, the purpose of it, the historical background, features through landmark judgments, latest development related to preamble, and the significance of it. So, moving to what is preamble? So, how would we define a preamble? The preamble is basically an introductory statement. In the similar fashion, as we define any person, as we introduce any person, so similarly, when you are asked to introduce the constitution, that purpose is basically fulfilled by the preamble. It is an introductory statement related to constitution, again, to the outer world and to the people of India, that this is the constitution of India, which has these and these features or these and this philosophy, which we will be aiming to provide it to our people. So it is also serving the purpose of declaring the fundamental purpose of constitution, the philosophy of it, and the guiding principles which will shape the nation's governance. So this is how you would define a preamble, that this is an introductory statement related to the constitution, and building on it, this is also a core declaration, again, to the outer world and to the people of India. What is this declaration to the outer world? That is to the world and people of India. That is, India is a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic country. So this is declaring to the world as well as to the people that India is a country which is sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic. We'll understand the meaning of all these in later section. And also, to the people, it also guarantees the justice, socio-economic, political justice, liberty, freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith, equality, and fraternity to all its citizens without discrimination. So this is a promise which preamble is making to the people, that the purpose of having this bulky constitution is this. So this is the core declaration as well. So this is the purpose, this is the definition, and various political thinkers have described Indian preamble in different ways. Thinkers like Palkhiwala has described it as identity card. For example, an individual has an identity card. There is a name, some age, some place of birth, something some information is conveyed through identity card. So similarly, this information is conveyed through preamble. This information is pertaining to the Constitution of India. So identity card. K.M. Munshi has described it as political horoscope. Now this is quite important. Political horoscope. Why political horoscope? Horoscope is something where we predict the future of an individual. And political horoscope means how the political setup or the polity of India would look like in the future. So at the time of adoption, that is in 1949, so this was said that India aims to be a sovereign from the day itself, socialist, that is welfare state, removing inequalities and all, secular democratic republic. So this is basically the political horoscope, the future of India which we want to build. So that is what is communicated through preamble. After this, we'll be moving to the historical background of the constitution. How the preamble has come into existence. That is what is the meaning of historical background. So this is the picture of Constituent Assembly, and Jawaharlal Nehru was reading out the objective resolution. So this is the point from which we can trace the origin of preamble in Indian Constitution. So this objective resolution, which was read out by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru on December 13, 1946, forms a starting point. This forms the foundational framework for the preamble. So this was read out, and later on, when the constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949, along with the constitution, the preamble was also adopted. Then on 26 January 1950, constitution came into force. So along with it, preamble came into force. Then 1976 amendment, that is 42nd amendment, constitutional amendment of 1976, added two words, that is socialist and secular, to the preamble. So this was the last addition to the preamble. Okay, socialist and secular, added by 42nd constitutional amendment. So this is the journey of preamble in Indian Constitution. Now moving forward with the key features. What are the important features of preamble? So we have discussed that preamble declares India to be a sovereign country. What does it mean? That India is complete independent in internal as well as external affairs. There will be no other supreme authority other than the people of India and the constitution. There will be no foreign interference or domination in the matters, whether it is internal or external matters of India. So India is a sovereign country. Now we got independence. There will be no subjugation to any foreign power or any crown or any other authority. Sovereign. Then India is a socialist. Again, here the purpose of declaring India, again, this was added by 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act 1976. So the purpose of this was to declare that India and the subsequent governments in India will try to establish a welfare state in India. That is the state which will reduce socio-economic inequalities and will prevent exploitation of the weaker section of the society. That is, it will try to establish, to develop an India which will be free from socio-economic inequalities, and there will be no exploitation of weaker section. So this is the purpose of having a socialist idea in the preamble. Then another key feature is secularism. Again, in India, the secularism which we practice is very different from the secularism which the Western countries practice there. In India, the secularism is principled intervention, which we will later on also discuss when we will be discussing Article 25 and 26, principled intervention. This is practiced in India, whereas in Western countries, it is strict separation. Of church and state. That church and the state, there will be no interaction among them. So this is strict separation, the Western model, and this is Indian model. So here in India, secularism means that there will be respect and protection, equal respect and protection for all religion. There will be no discrimination in favor of or in against of any particular religion. So that is secularism, because we have seen in our freedom struggle that, and we have faced the wrath of partition. So that is why we wanted to have a secular country that is free from these evils of communalism, right? So sovereign, socialist, and secular country. Then the fourth feature is democratic republic. What does it mean, democratic republic? From the very beginning in India, we had adult franchisee, equal and adult franchisee. Every person who is above the age of 18 years is eligible to cast vote. So this is equal and adult franchisee. There will be no restrictions related to property rights or some other restrictions related to voting. Every person has right to vote, and every person who is casting the vote are equal. Whether the vote is from affluent section or from weaker section, the value of each vote is equal. So this is democratic. We'll be having elected representative. There are elections to the Lok Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, right? So people, they elect their representatives, they raise their voice, their matters are discussed in the parliament, they enact legislations related to the people, right? So that is democratic. Republic, that we will be having a elected head of a state. Elected head. The president is elected head of India. Though the elections are indirect elections, elected by the elected members of the people. So elected head, there will be no monarchy. No monarchy like England. We do not have a queen or a king, right? So republic, that is elected head. No theocracy, no other model of governance, only democratic republic. So these are the key features of preamble. Then there are other things which preamble promises to the people of India. What promises preamble has made? That it will ensure justice related to social, economic, and political equality to all citizens. Political, we have seen that every vote counts equal. Economic, that all the people will have opportunity or means and resources for their livelihood. Then social, there will be no caste and class divide. So justice. So this is the promise which preamble has made to deliver to all the citizens socio-economic and political equality. That is socio-economic and political justice. Then liberty. That is preamble promises the people of India freedom of thought. This freedom of thought is very important because an individual can develop his or her personality to the fullest extent only when they have the freedom to think. A famous philosopher, Descartes, has even said this dictum, that is, I think, therefore I am. So, the core of human existence is the freedom to think. Only when they are able to think freely, they can question the establishment, they can question various superstitions, they can question various things, and then the real development starts. So, freedom of thought is promised. Then, freedom of expression, just allowing you to think and not allowing you to take action or express what you have thought is meaningless. So that is why you are also given the freedom of expression. What thinking you have, what ideas you have related to any matter, any political matter, any economic matter, any idea, so that you can express to other peoples as well. Then you have freedom of belief, faith, and worship. We'll see in Article 25, 26 that the Constitution guarantees you the freedom of religion, that you can choose any religion, you can worship any god, you can have faith in any religious rituals and all, subject to certain restrictions of public health, law and order, and morality. But still, this is promised by the preamble. Justice, liberty, and equality. When you have liberty, the next thing which naturally follows is the demand for equality. Liberty is freedom. Freedom to what extent? So the limitation to freedom is equality. My freedom and your freedom, they can be in contradiction, but then there is something called equality, which will ensure that every person has equal status and opportunity without discrimination. Now, this status, equality of status is in front of law. That is against the law of land, in the court of law, every person, whether he is uh, from very affluent society or from a weaker section, everyone is equal before the law. So equality of status. Then opportunity. The meaning of equality, which has been thought of in India, is not of the equality of outcome, the equality of opportunity. Everyone should have the opportunity to write civil service examination. Whether they get into finalist or not is a matter of their own talent and merit, how they clear this examination, what strategies they are having. But at least there should be opportunity. There should be no unnecessary restrictions which will prevent any person to appear into this examination other than the eligibility criteria. So this is equality of opportunity. Anyone who is above the age of 25 can contest Lok Sabha election. So this is equality of opportunity, right? Without discrimination. Then fraternity. Again, in our freedom struggle, in Indian freedom struggle, we have seen that all the people, they have fought shoulder to shoulder against imperial power, that is Britain, to achieve this freedom. So we value this brotherhood. So we want to continue this brotherhood. That is brotherhood ensuring dignity of all individual. If we will consider all people as our brothers and sisters, then only we will be making efforts to ensure that every person has their dignity, right? So fraternity. This was taken from French Revolution. This has been inspired from French Revolution. So these are the key features of preamble. Now we'll move forward with uh, landmark judgments related to preamble. The first judgment related to preamble was A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, 1950. So, although the question before the Supreme Court was not directly related to preamble, but this can be thought of as a starting point where preamble was into the discussion. So, the matter which was before the Supreme Court was related to the Article 21, which ensures personal liberty, life and personal liberty. This is Article 21, fundamental right, which gives you life and personal liberty. So the question was whether the preamble's commitment of justice and liberty, when they are in contradiction with Article 21, this justice and liberty, when they are in contradiction with Article 21's objective, so what will happen in that situation? So the court said that Article 21 requires only procedure established by law and not due process. Procedure established by law means it has to be duly enacted. Duly enacted means that it has to follow the necessary steps required for any legislation that is passed by both the houses and got president's assent and notified. So the procedure has to be followed. What is due process? The inherent fairness. Inherent fairness. This was not followed till Maneka Gandhi case. Through this due process was also brought into Indian jurisprudence, but till then it was procedure established by law only. So the idea here was that when the government is enacting any legislation, if that legislation has followed the required procedure, that law can even take your personal liberty. So the justice and liberty which the preamble promises has to be given higher respect. So what is the preamble link? Emphasized nascent states need for justice and security, limiting judicial interference. That is, the country which has recently got independence, it was in 1950, 1947 we got independence, in 1949 the constitution was adopted, and in 1950 the matter has been in the court. So the justice and security of a newly independent state country is very important, and therefore judicial interference should be limited. This was given by the court. So the concentrate or the crux of this judgment is that preamble is not a part of the constitution and is not a source of substantive power for the government. So this was the final judgment related to preamble. From this judgment, that is, preamble is not a part of the constitution and not source of substantive power. That is, it is not a restriction on the legislative powers or powers of the government. Okay. So moving forward to the next case after this Gopalan versus State of Madras is Berubari Union. This is the starting point from where the direct question was related to preamble. First major pronouncement on the preamble's legal status and constitutional significance. The two things were before the court. What is the legal status of preamble, whether it is a part of the constitution or not? So this was direct question before the Supreme Court. And the constitutional significance. What is the significance of preamble for the constitution? So here the issue was whether the preamble constitutes an integral part of the constitution and possesses the power to limit parliament's sovereign authority in the constitutional matters. So is it an integral part or has been a later addition to the constitution? Yes. The fact is, when the constitution was adopted, was drafted, the preamble was adopted as a later addition. But yes, of course, like any preface to any book, this has been placed in the front of the constitution. So this is a later addition to the constitution. But still, is it an integral part or not? And whether it is a limit on the parliament's power to enact any legislation. So this was to be discussed in the judgment. So what was the ruling? What was the judgment? Preamble is not a part of the constitution. The Beru Union is saying that in this case it has been said that preamble is not a substantive part of the constitution and thus cannot impose restriction on parliament's legislative sovereignty. So parliament can enact any law even which is in contradiction to the preamble. So this was basically the judgment. So what other interpretations of the judgment are that legislation cannot be restrained from its function, that the function of parliament is to enact law. So they can make a law and preamble cannot restrict it because it is its core function. Also, the preamble cannot be used to decide an ambiguous part of the Indian constitution. Here it is very important that here they are not allowing preamble to play a role of help in the interpretation of the constitution, which we will see later on. So here Supreme Court said that preamble cannot be a guiding light for interpreting the provisions of the constitution. It will not be of any help for the interpretation. So the preamble as a key to the open the minds of the makers, an interpretation guide without enforceable legal power. Then what the court interpreted that yes, from preamble we can look into what was going on in the minds of the constitution framers, what they aimed when they have inserted this word justice, social, economic, and political justice. So what was their aim? What was their purpose? What they intended to do? So this can be looked from preamble, serving as an interpretive guide without enforceable legal power. Okay, we can get this idea, but this will not be legally enforceable, similar to the part 3 of the constitution, that is fundamental right, where if it is abridged, you can approach the High Court and Supreme Court. So here, even if the legislative power of the parliament is in contradiction with the provisions of the preamble, you cannot move the court. That is what was said by the court in Berubari. So the thing is, in Berubari Union, it was said that preamble is not a substantive part and it is not a restriction on the parliament's legislative sovereignty. Then is the third case, which is Sajjan Singh versus State of Rajasthan. The matter before the court was related to the 17th constitutional amendment, which was related to the land acquisition. So here, this person, Sajjan Singh, went to the court, approached the court related to abrogation of his fundamental rights related to the right of property and profession. Then, right to property 19(1)(f), Article 19(1)(f) was part of fundamental right, but then it was removed and it was put into Article 300(a). So now this right to property is no more there, but then it was in fundamental right. So the matter came before the court whether this 17th amendment, which is related to the land acquisition, violates 19(1)(f), profession, right to profession of an individual. So the court said that Parliament can amend any part of the Constitution, including the fundamental rights. Parliament can amend. There is no limit on the legislation power, amendment power of the Parliament. So preamble could theoretically be also amended at times. So preamble can be amended. So this landmark judgment represented a significant shift in the Supreme Court's understanding. Shift means till now what they were interpreting related to the use of preamble. Now there is a significant shift. What shift? That they said that preamble is a vital for our body politic. Preamble is vital for our body politic. Body politic means the political setup of India. So for that, it is very important. Why important? Because it is not merely a ceremonial text. It has got some real purpose. It is not just a later addition for the purpose of having a preface before any book. It has some real job to do. It has some real declaration to make, and it has some role to play. What role? The purpose is playing an essential direction and purpose. It provides essential direction. Where should the Indian political setup or establishment head towards? And the purpose. What is the purpose of having this constitution, having this complete mechanism, political mechanism in India, right? And it can be compared to America's Declaration of Independence. So this is the source of inspiration for us to have a preamble. The origin point was objective resolution read out by Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru on 13th December 1946. But the inspiration which we got to have a preamble for our constitution was from this America's Declaration of Independence. So this America's Declaration of Independence has a real job to do. It is not just ceremonial text. It has the role that it provides essential direction and purpose. Similar is the case with the preamble to the Constitution of India. Legal recognition. The judgment opened the door to acknowledging the preamble's significant constitutional importance and interpretative value. That it is not merely a ceremonial text, it will be of real help in interpreting different provisions. Whenever there is any doubt, whenever there is any confusion related to any provision of the Constitution, Supreme Court or the courts can always look towards preamble to get clarity, because preamble is giving us the essential direction and purpose. So always they can refer to preamble to get clarity related to any provision of the Constitution. So with this, we move to the next landmark judgment, that is Goloknath versus State of Punjab. So here again, the matter was not directly related to preamble, but was related to the Parliament's authority to amend fundamental rights. So here the question was Parliament's power to amend fundamental rights, testing the limit of legislative authority. So, can Parliament amend the fundamental rights, or is it the limit which Parliament cannot cross? So, the court's decision was amendments. Whenever they will be, that is, the Parliament will be bringing any amendment to make modification in the fundamental rights that will fall under the category of law for the meaning of Article 13. Article 13 says that any law which contradicts the provisions of Part 3, that is, abridges the fundamental rights, is void, can be declared void by the court, right? So that amendment falls into the definition of law for the meaning of Article 13, right? So by this rule, Parliament cannot amend fundamental rights, right? Parliament cannot amend fundamental rights, emphasizing the constitutional and Constitution's inviolable basic framework, because they say that it is something, the core of Constitution, something which is very basic framework of the Constitution. The Parliament cannot violate this. So since the preamble reflects the basic philosophy, so when they said inviolable basic framework, so preamble reflects, we have seen, preamble reflects the basic philosophy, the foundational principles for the Constitution, right? So that means that preamble also cannot be amended. Now, the preamble's ideals were invoked to interpret and protect the inviolability of fundamental rights against legislative encroachment. That is because preamble has promised to the people justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, and secularism, socialist, right? So these things, preamble has provided the foundational basis. So, and this has been helpful to the court in interpreting and protecting the fundamental rights. So when preamble is protecting your fundamental rights, and if you cannot amend fundamental rights, indirectly you cannot amend preamble. So this was Goloknath versus State of Punjab, where the court said that preamble cannot be amended. Before this, they were having the view that preamble is not a substantive part and can be amended. But here, it was a different thing. Now, the most important judgment related to preamble is Keshwanand Bharti versus the State of Kerala, 1973. So this is a historic transformation has happened in this case. What happened? It was a 13-judge bench, the largest constitutional bench ever formed in India. 13-judge bench. The decision was given by 7-6 majority, that is majority members 7 and others were having dissent views. Okay, so it was a thin majority. Okay, largest constitution bench. What was the decision? Preamble is integral part of the constitution, integral part. So it overruled what Berubari Union judgment gave. Berubari Union case said that it is not a substantive part, not an integral part, and can be freely amended. So here it was said by the court that it is an integral part of the constitution and is inseparable part, integral and inseparable part with a full legal significance. Full legal significance. Legal significance means that every word which has been given in the preamble carries some significance for the law making as well as for the law implementation and interpretation. Okay, so full legal significance. Again, in this judgment, the court came up with a basic structure doctrine, which is very important. Basic structure doctrine. So, what is this doctrine? This doctrine basically says that okay, we accept that Parliament has power to amend the Constitution. This was accepted by the court, but there are some core ideas, core basis of the Constitution, a basic framework which Parliament cannot amend through their amending powers. So that core ideals, that core basis, that basic framework is basic structure. So this doctrine says that Parliament has the power to amend the Constitution, but subject to the basic structure. That is, this basic structure cannot be amended. So this limitations was placed and said that preamble can be amended. Okay, we accept even fundamental rights can be amended. So preamble can be amended, but such amendment cannot damage the Constitution's fundamental essence and character. So when Parliament, let's say, decides to amend the preamble, they can do so. But when they are trying to come up with an amendment, they should take care that it should not modify the fundamental essence and the character. When the preamble has promised that it will be giving justice, which is socio-economic and political justice to all its citizens, so that cannot be taken away. That foundational basis cannot be taken away. So it overruled Berubari Union, Keshwanand Bharati, and declared preamble to be an integral and inseparable part of the Constitution. Yes, it can be amended subject to basic structure doctrine. So this is what has been given by different landmark judgment. Then latest developments in 2024, the matter came before the court related to the words secular and socialist, which was added through 42nd constitutional amendment, the word socialist and secular. So whether this amendment are valid or not, the court said that it is perfectly legitimate. There is no issue in adding these words to the constitution. It doesn't change the nature of the constitution or the nature of the Indian political setup, which was aimed by the constitutional framers. So whether it is there or not, it doesn't make major changes. So this addition of socialist and secular is perfectly fine. Anyhow, this socialist which was added in the preamble is not the socialism or communism, capitalism. Basically, it is not adherence to any strict ideology. It is basically the commitment to a welfare state which promotes social justice. So, by the term socialist in the preamble, we are focusing on a welfare state, on the development of establishment of a welfare state which promotes social justice rather than any economic ideology. Okay. Then secular, again here secular. The court said that it is perfectly fine to add secular to the constitution, to the preamble, because it gives equal respect to all the religion, prohibiting state discrimination based on religious belief. Anyhow, Article 25 and 26 conveys the same. So this addition is not making any modification or changing the essential character of the constitution. It is reinforcing the same thing. That is why these additions, socialist and secular, are perfectly fine. Then it is a living document. The court said that this reinforced the concept of preamble as a living document that evolves to reflect India's changing values while preserving core constitutional principles. That is, we should allow amendments like 42nd amendment adding these words. These amendments are allowed. We can go for it because this makes any constitution a living constitution. When the constitutions are rigid, they cannot breathe, and when they cannot breathe, they are bound to fail, like what happened in Nepal and Sri Lanka. So this is a living document. So such amendments will be there time to time, subject to the basic core ideology of the constitution should not be amended. Okay. So the last thing is in this topic preamble is The significance of preamble. What is the significance? So this preamble has been termed as the soul of India. This preamble is a core declaration. It tells to the outer world and to the people the things about India, that what kind of India we want to develop, we want to establish. That is the thing. So it is a constitutional identity, embodies India's fundamental constitutional character and national aspirations for justice and equality. That is what we want to achieve. Our aspirations are given in the preamble. That is justice, equality, liberty, fraternity, socialist, secular, democratic republic, right? So this is constitutional identity. Then democratic beacon remains the guiding light for India's democratic journey towards justice, liberty, and fraternity. That every time this gives us the direction that we have to move in this direction to achieve the India of what India, the constitution framers, they dreamt of, right? So this is democratic beacon. Legal evolution, various judgments we have seen, right? From Gopalan to Keshwanand Bharti, there is a progressive judicial recognition has transformed it from mere introduction to enforceable constitutional provision. That it is no more a ceremonial text which has been added to the constitution. It has some real purpose, real job to do. That is to help in the interpretation of the constitution. It guides courts in constitutional interpretation and protects fundamental rights from legislative erosion. Because preamble provides you the foundational philosophy, the foundational principles which protects fundamental rights, and thus it is an interpretive guide. So anytime if there is any confusion, any doubt, any issue related to the interpretation of any provision of the constitution, courts can always look towards the preamble. Social inspiration continues to inspire social movement and democratic struggles for the justice and equality. So we the people of India, when the preamble says that, basically it is to our hearts and to our minds, that is we have to uh, we get inspiration from the preamble every time for the democratic struggles to achieve justice and equality. This is what preamble has promised to us. So this keeps our soul awakened to achieve this. Preamble is the soul of the Constitution, reflecting the hopes, aspirations, and values of the people of India in their quest for just and equitable society. So, what is the purpose of having this all set up, all political setup, to have a just and equitable society? We are not living in a barbaric world. We want to achieve a society which is just and equitable. Every person has justice. Every person gets justice. Every person gets equal opportunities, right? So for this, the hopes, aspiration, and values are represented by the preamble. So that is why it is the soul of the Indian Constitution. Okay. So a quick recap. Preamble, foundational principles of Indian constitutional democracy. Definition, introductory statement, underlying philosophy and guiding principle, core declaration. It declares India to be a sovereign socialist secular democratic republic guaranteeing justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity to all its citizens. Palkhiwala said it identity card. K. Munshi called it political horoscope. Then this is the historical background of preamble. December 30, 1946, Jawaharlal Nehru read out objective resolution. So this forms the basis of preamble. Then November 26, 1949, it was adopted. Then 26 January 1950 came into force. 42nd Amendment, socialist and secular were added to the constitution. Then key features, sovereign socialist secular democratic republic, promises justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. Judgments, Gopalan, preamble is not a part of substantive part of the constitution, can be amended. Berubari, not a part of the constitution and can be amended. Again, Sajjan Singh, not a part of the constitution, can be freely amended. Then Golaknath is a part of the constitution, cannot be amended. Cannot be amended. Okay. Then Keshwanand Bharti, basically a way out. Yes, overruled Berubari Union, integral and separable part of the constitution. But yes, subject to the constitutional essence and character. It can be amended, but subject to the doctrine of basic structure. Then recent affirmations, then constitutional soul, the purpose of or the significance of preamble, and this is all about preamble. Thank you all.